She traded herself for shelter, but the lonely Comanche gave her a home, a heart, and a future. The wind howled over the barren plains, rattling the loose boards of a collapsing barn and carrying with it the scent of winter's cruelty. Clara Bennett, 21 years old and utterly alone, wrapped her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders as she stumbled toward the distant glow of firelight. Her shoes had long since split open, her once ivory dress hung in tatters, and the cold gnawed at her bones like a beast with no mercy. Hunger twisted her stomach, but the loneliness and ache deeper than any physical pain was what truly broke her. She had lost everything, her father to drink, her mother to fever, and her family's small farm to debt collectors who cared little for the broken young woman left behind. That night, Clara's desperation carried her to the camp of a Comanche man living apart from his tribe. She knew the whispers, savages, raiders, bloodthirsty. But she also knew the truth of her situation. One more night under the open sky and her frozen body would stiffen by morning. She needed shelter, warmth, food. And she had nothing left to trade but herself. She approached the fire slowly, her voice trembling as she called out in the darkness. "Please. I have nothing. Take me and I'll be your servant, your anything. Just don't turn me away." The man rose from the fire's glow. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his long hair braided and his face hardened by years of solitude. His eyes, however, were not cruel, they were weary, guarded, but touched with something Clara had not seen in a long time, recognition of her humanity. His name was Techo. A Comanche warrior once, now a man who had chosen exile from his own people after bloodshed he could not bear. He looked at her shivering form and listened to her broken plea. Silence hung between them, heavy as the winter sky. Then, in a voice low and steady, he said, "You do not trade your body here. You will have shelter. Fire. Food. Not because you offer yourself, but because no one should die alone in the cold." Clara's knees buckled. She had braced herself for rejection, for cruelty, even for use. She had not prepared for mercy. The first nights were difficult. Clara slept near the fire, curled like a frightened child, while Techo worked in silence, preparing dried meat, mending tools, and keeping the fire alive. He spoke little, his English rough but clear. When she tried to offer herself again, fearful he would throw her out otherwise, his eyes flared, and he shook his head firmly. "I am lonely, yes," he admitted one evening, staring into the flames. "But I will not take what you do not freely give. You are not a thing. You are a person. You stay because you need to. That is enough." It was then that Clara's tears came. She wept into her hands, wept for the cruelty of the world that had treated her like something to be bartered, wept for the kindness of a man whom society had told her to fear. And in that moment, something began to shift, like the thaw of spring hidden deep beneath the snow. Days became weeks. Clara regained strength. She learned the rhythm of Techo's life, gathering wood, tending snares, cooking stews that smelled of wild herbs and smoked venison. She helped where she could, sweeping, sewing torn garments, and once even daring to hum a lullaby her mother used to sing. Techo had stopped in his tracks when he heard her voice, his face softening in a way that made Clara's heart tighten. One night, as the wind rattled the walls, Clara asked him why he lived alone. His jaw tensed, and for a long time he said nothing. Then, with a voice heavy as stone, he spoke, "I fought. I took lives. Some were soldiers, some, not. The screams do not leave me. I could not stay among my people, nor live among yours. So I chose exile. Here, only the wind judges me." Clara reached across the fire and touched his hand. His skin was warm, calloused, trembling slightly under her fingertips. "We all carry ghosts," she whispered. "But ghosts cannot feed us. They cannot warm us. Only the living can." Something cracked open in Techo then. He didn't smile, he rarely did, but his eyes softened in a way that made the cabin feel less like exile, and more like sanctuary. The winter deepened. Snow piled high, wolves prowled near the edges of the camp, and nights stretched long and merciless. Yet inside Techo's shelter, warmth grew not only from the fire, but between two wounded souls learning to trust one another. Clara began to laugh again, timid at first, then freer. Techo, though still quiet, began teaching her Comanche words, tuba for fire, pui for heart. When she repeated them, stumbling over the sounds, he would shake his head softly, but the corners of his mouth curved in what she dared to call a smile. One morning, Clara awoke to find a small carving beside her blanket. It was a figure of a bird, wings spread as if caught mid-flight. Dakota had carved it during the night. She held it to her chest, tears pricking her eyes. It was not a gift of possession, it was a gift of freedom, of hope. But the world beyond their shelter had not forgotten them. Late in February, riders appeared on the horizon, settlers, armed and wary. They had seen smoke rising and came expecting a raiders' camp. Clara stood frozen as they shouted threats, demanding Dakota step forward. Their rifles gleamed in the pale sun, their eyes sharp with hatred. Clara's heart pounded. She knew what they saw, a lone Comanche man, a white woman by his side. They would not believe the truth. They would call her captive, dishonored, lost. They might kill him outright. She stepped forward, her voice breaking but fierce. He saved me. He kept me alive when no one else would. If you harm him, you harm me. The men faltered. Some sneered, muttering words like traitor and whore. But something in Clara's stance, thin but unbroken, defiant despite the cold, made them hesitate. After a tense silence, they spat into the snow and rode off, leaving behind echoes of their contempt. Dakota looked at Clara then, his expression unreadable. But when she turned toward him, her eyes blazing with conviction, he whispered in Comanche, "Pui, heart." And this time, his smile was not hidden. Spring came. The snow melted, streams ran full, and wildflowers pushed through the thawing earth. Clara no longer thought of herself as a guest or a beggar. She belonged. The rhythm of life had shifted from survival to living, from silence to song. She and Dakota worked side by side, planting, building, laughing more than either thought possible again. One evening, as the sun painted the horizon with gold and crimson, Clara stood by the doorway of their small home. She looked at Dakota, at the man who had given her shelter without demand, who had given her dignity without condition, who had turned her plea for survival into a promise of belonging. Her voice trembled as she spoke. I came here offering myself in desperation. You gave me more than shelter, you gave me my life back. You gave me a home. A heart. A future. Dakota stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. No, he said gently. We gave that to each other. And so, two exiles found something the world had tried to steal from them, not just survival, not just companionship, but love born of kindness, forgiveness, and the courage to see beyond wounds. Clara never forgot the night she traded herself for shelter. But she also never forgot the man who refused that trade, who chose compassion over possession, who saw her not as broken, but as whole. Their story became more than their own. It became a quiet reminder whispered by the wind across the plains, that even in the harshest winters of life, compassion can build a home where none exists, love can grow where no seed was planted, and two souls, lost in their own pain, can find a future when they dare to see one another fully. Sparkle's final message. True shelter is not four walls against the cold. It is kindness, respect, and the courage to see someone's humanity when the world refuses to. And sometimes, the future we long for is not found in what we trade, but in what we freely give.